Good morning. Good morning, YouTube fam. Appreciate everyone joining me on this portion of the book read playlist this morning. We are going to continue our reading of Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. Just concluded chapter 8, and we will be getting on to chapter 9 here in this video. Really quick, if this is your first time seeing me as a creator, my name's Nick Kleitch. I am the creator of the Life with Nick YouTube channel and the host of the Life with Nick podcast. Just to give you a little bit of preface and understanding of me, if you go to my channel and check out my introduction video, I lay out what this podcast is all about, what this channel is all about, and my goals and my vision for how I can provide value for you. So if that's something that you're interested in, please head over to the introduction, and you can also learn my why behind all this good stuff. But out of respect for people that are following along, I'm going to keep the ball moving here today. So chapter 9 is opposite of the success mechanisms that we had previously talked about, and today we're talking all about the failure mechanisms. So our human body comes packaged specifically with certain designs and operating systems for us to use. We have our own set of red light signals, of pressure gauges, of danger signs for when our body's just not firing as it's supposed to, and stress and emotion builds up. Doctors, for example, leverage symptoms to get to the root cause of illnesses, and we're here to do the same in the capacity of understanding the failure mechanisms and how they can disrupt us. And so basically, we can sit here and study success all day of the week, and that is beneficial, right? But there's also a beneficial piece to studying the pitfalls, the traps, and that way we're more aware of those pitfalls and traps so we do not spend any more time falling into them. And then in addition to that, we are also studying success. So if the success type personality is playing offense, right? We're going after something, we're pursuing something. The failure type personality traits are us playing defense. Again, saying basically, this is what makes us feel good. This is what makes us feel bad, generating self-awareness. So now we're driving down the road and we're avoiding damaging things while also being in pursuit of our goal. And that's the peanut butter and jelly sandwich approach. But we do have to cover defense today, and that's what we're going to talk about. Before we get in there, though, I should also note that no one is immune to these negative feelings and attitudes. Even successful people fall into this from time to time, so don't think that you're immune from any of this stuff. But furthermore, we do need to lay it out as far as that is concerned. So let's define failure for a moment. So some people define failure as the inability to accomplish a task. In some ways, that is correct. However, I'm looking at it through a very different lens today. So failure in my mind is when we quit and give up on life, jobs, relationships, career. The idea of throwing in the towel, saying, I'm done here, I can't take any more of this. That to me is failure. And it's that way because when we give away failure and quitting and that kind of hopelessness, if you will, you're essentially mentally giving up and giving in that moment. And that to me is when failure comes in. I say it like that because failure in pursuit of something meaningful to us is actually quite beneficial and gets a bad rep. Remember, our success mechanism enjoys failed attempts in pursuit of our goals because it teaches us what not to do. It narrows in our focus. It really kind of allows us to have feedback so then that way we can course correct in the pursuit of our goal. That's why they say like you fail your way to success. You go from such a place of not knowing through failure to a place of knowing, and then you can arrive and pave a path for those people in their own journey coming up. So negative feedback is critical. Giving up, on the other hand, and throwing in the towel, that's a super powerful moment, again, because we're relinquishing our power. And we must always aim to continue and never give up. Okay, the ultimate failure in life is completely giving up on everything. No matter how much failure or lack of progress that we're going to experience, we must always strive to move forward. So the failure traits as I'm going to list below, don't just happen, and they're not an indication of an imperfect human. We're just saying if we spend too much time here, we begin to think that these things are a way of life, and they're not. They're just deep traps that we can entrench ourselves in if we are not careful. The goal is to first understand what they are, and then to cure them as quickly as we can when we find ourselves trapped inside of these pitfalls. Now, there is potentially that we stay in these traps permanently, and I'll get into that a little bit, but that would be ultimate kind of bad place to be in, because it's going to lead to a life of unhappiness and lack of fulfillment. So never should we ever feel a permanent residency in these frameworks or in the traits within the framework. We should always strive to stay or get out of these places as quickly as we can, while learning the lessons of why we maybe got in there in the first place. So I'm going to take a drink of water and a drink of coffee, and we're going to dive in. Okay. The F in failure stands for frustration, more specifically, leading to hopelessness. So frustration is a part of the human experience, right? All of us get frustrated at some point or another, yet it should not become a way of life. Chronic frustration, meaning most of the days you're feeling frustrated, usually means the goals that we've set for ourselves are not realistic, or it also means that we could have a deeper issue in some other area of life. We must identify where that issue is coming from. So here's a couple examples as far as frustration goes. So perfectionism can lead to long-term frustration. If we're too focused on being perfect in life or on a project or whatever it is, we can drive ourselves into insanity because nothing will ever be good enough. So if you feel like you're not good enough or the work you do is not good enough, this may be a point to key on, because you're maybe battling some perfectionism, you're maybe battling some lack of fulfillment in your work. There could be a variety of things, but that type of mentality and self-sabotage could be a reason why you're feeling frustrated. The other thing is self-image can lead to frustration. This is a big one. If we feel unworthy and incompetent and inferior, this can lead to us being frustrated because we never feel at peace with who we are. That's like the first element of things. The second is you feel like you can never catch a break. If you're a type of person that says certain things to yourself about how you never catch a break, that could be you leading yourself into frustration. Furthermore, we can cultivate an identity around being someone that never wins or being someone that always comes up short. And so basically, what this self-image is saying is that we've experienced a lot of failure and failed attempts, and now we think that's who we are as people. And we know that that's not true, and that's why we're covering this as a pitfall. So this, again, could just be an indication, but perfectionism or self-sabotage could be a reason why you're feeling frustrated, or self-image could be a reason why you're feeling frustrated because you're not in tune with yourself, and that could be outbursting. So lastly, if this gets to hopelessness in terms of you're so frustrated you become hopeless, we must never get to this point. This is kind of the final straw right here, because frustration is a temporary state, whereas hopelessness can consume your reality. Hopelessness implies that we're giving up everything, our internal power, to outside forces. Hopelessness says, it doesn't matter for me anymore. I've already tried all this stuff and I'm no good. I'm going to be broken forever, or I'm no good. I'll never be a winner. And always allowing the outcome of that event to dictate the rest of our lives. This is super, super, super dangerous because, again, if you don't feel like you have a chance, if you don't feel like you have faith or hope in what you're doing and how you're living, naturally there's going to be other things that creep in there that create just a very painful and unfulfilling experience. So if you feel hopeless, if you use the language of being hopeless, we need to identify that shit right now, and we must take personal accountability to work ourselves out of this condition and regain our power. Time wasted and hopelessness is not good, because you don't get that time back, obviously, but furthermore, no one is coming to help us in our lives, unfortunately. We'll have mentorship from people, right, and our friends and our family, but we are solely responsible for where we're at, where we're looking to go, all of that good stuff. So never stay long in hopelessness. Again, if you hit it occasionally, that's fine, but just know that long-term frustration could lead to feeling hopeless. The A The A in failure stands for aggressiveness. And with aggressiveness, more so emotional irregularity, which just simply means failing to regulate our emotions. So aggressiveness can be a byproduct of frustration. There are some moments in life where being aggressive can serve us well, but if we allow our whole personality and our lack of emotional regularity to take over, we can just become overly aggressive. Now, speaking to the men here more so than the women, if we feel life has not given us what we think we deserve at this point, we can become overly aggressive because of our nature, our testosterone, and just sometimes, like, when things aren't going well, maybe said another way, we want to fight our way out of it, or we want to fight other people because we don't know how to handle our own business internally, if that makes sense. Aggression can really come through, and no one likes the guy that is constantly looking for fighting, or that is constantly trying to be aggressive and go to the extra length there. So if this is you, know that your aggressive nature may come from outside sources that made you this way, but likely a lot of it is frustration or inner work that has not been done yet. So we must learn to discipline our aggression before it gets out of hand. Misdirected aggression can become a very destructive force because people begin to separate from us. No one wants to be around someone that's just super aggressive all the time. Okay, a couple of points here. So aggressiveness can actually be found in different forms outside of just physical anger. Irritability, rudeness, gossiping, nagging, complaining can be forms of aggressiveness. You're just basically trying to impose pain into the world through your relationships or whatever the case is. Again, this is not a good place to be, but this is why we're also studying these traps and pitfalls of personality, because then we can work ourselves back out. Final point before we go to the next one. When it comes to emotional regulation, that skill set, it is a skill set that we must learn that will help also calm some of the aggressiveness, because as you go through emotional triggers, you'll become more aware of what that is, why that's happening, or at least we should become more aware of why that is and why that's happening to then get back on track. Okay. The third pitfall here in failure is insecurity. Okay, this is a big one. It's a big one. So insecurity is based on a concept or belief of inner inadequacy. So what does that mean in like plain English? Essentially, we don't feel like we measure up in certain areas of life in comparison to our peers, and so we feel insecure. Most of the time, insecurity doesn't actually come from an internal source. It comes from using an incorrect measuring stick towards our peers. We compare ourselves, our abilities, and our backgrounds and our experiences to an imagined ideal or perfect self or life situation. So just to put a pin in that really quick, essentially, as we're going through life, we are looking at other people for direction, like where are they doing? Maybe I should do that, because we're kind of herd animals at the end of the day, like we are tribal. So when we see other things and see other people, we get curious about that. However, just because someone has something that we don't, then that kind of imposes that insecurity on like, oh, they have it, why don't I, kind of deal. So this is what can cause insecurity. So if we are insecure, we can mentally come to a point of absolutes, meaning like we should be good all the time. We should feel good all the time. We should feel successful all the time. We should be happy all the time. Life doesn't work like that. It's a constant churn of events and emotions. And so there's balance in trying to figure out, okay, I feel really good about an accomplishment, but then I'm sure I'm going to compare myself. So then that's going to bring me back down thinking I need more, and this ongoing drive. So it's very important to really understand insecurity, because it's all an internal battle, right? We're not going to, a lot of times, physically die. We can get envious or jealous of other people, and that's just part of the human condition. But the more we do that and the more we feel that, the more worse we're going to feel about ourselves. So we have to learn to stack our own self-confidence, self-esteem, accomplishments to what we feel is very exciting and meaningful for us. That boosts security because we're doing something of purpose to us that we love. Then that's how you can avoid some of that stuff. Couple notes here. If you do feel insecure, it is because you're not working towards something meaningful in your life. Just kind of what I was talking about here. If we're stagnant and we get distracted, then we look at our peers. What are you doing? Why are you doing it that way? Oh, I wish I could always be like Jill or Bob. That to me is, again, you're stale and you're going out, looking outside of yourself. Versus if we're in pursuit of a meaningful goal, that we find interesting and cool, we are able to feel more fulfilled in our own nature. And I say that because, again, if you're in pursuit of something that is very exciting to you, you don't look outward to say, oh, what are my peers doing at all? No, you're actively engaged in what you want to create. That's where we want to be. And then here's a quote that I thought was interesting. The man who thinks that he has arrived in life, meaning that he is an end product, has about used up his usefulness to us. Essentially saying, we'll never arrive to a perfect destination. We'll never arrive somewhere in life. There's always the next evolution. There's always the next tier. There's always the next, kind of big project that we need to work on. That's just part of the, again, human experience. But we need to, again, focus on internal victory to then be successful externally. So insecurity is that inner battle. Another thing is that ego can lead to insecurity. It's a way of proving ourselves and our superiority over others. In which case, if we're trying to do that, we're not in that for the right reasons. Okay, so just to kind of keep the ball moving here. The L in failure stands for loneliness or lack of oneness. So all of us can get lonely at times. Again, part natural penalty for what we pay for being a human and an individual. It is the extreme and chronic feeling of loneliness, being cut off and alienated from other people. That's the symptom of the failure mechanism. This type of deep loneliness is caused by alienation of life. The more that we detract and retract out of life to protect ourselves, to protect our ego, to not take chances, that to us is where we can begin to feel lonely. So it is also loneliness from our real self and life events, where things can really start to make an unfortunate impact here. So in the process of living our lives and going out and experiencing life, there's going to be good and bad moments, right? And so if something is bad, we want to naturally retract from pain. That's just part of how we're wired, and it makes sense, right? No one wants to be in pain for a long time. With that being said, just because we do have a bad experience, we can't make a habit of coming out of life and engaging in life just to protect ourselves, because that will make us more lonely. Now, being an introvert and being lonely are two separate things, right? If you regain your strength and power for your weekly life by needing some alone time, we're not talking about that, right? We're talking about people that feel very lonely and they're afraid to go out and experience life because of maybe a past failure, or they're afraid of some kind of outcome. And to just drive this point home, so again, loneliness is a way of self-protection. We push away the harshness of life to protect ourselves from pain, yet it also, with that, takes the beauty and potential out of life. The more we're retracting, the more we're eliminating the opportunity for us to go out and create. Other people are the key to a rich existence. So people in general is who we need to engage with in life, right? And if we get hurt by our peers, we must learn to forgive them and forgive ourselves so we can move forward into the beauty of life. So the more we feel in this trap of loneliness, the more we need to look inward and say, hey, whatever reason that's causing us to be by ourselves and be lonely, we need to then be able to say, okay, if we continue like this, we're never going to create the good experiences. Sure, we're protecting from bad, but too much protection from bad also steals power from good experiences. So restore yourself, but get back out there and create some good friendships and people that care about you. You don't need a lot of people. You just need the right people. Okay, I'm going to take a drink here really quick. About halfway, I think. We're probably further than halfway. Okay, so the U in failure, we have 3 left. It stands for uncertainty. So uncertainty is a killer for a lot of people. When the outcome is not completely known, it can paralyze us because all we want to know is the best place of action, right? So unfortunately, it's not that simple. And oftentimes we need to use uncertainty, or we use uncertainty as an excuse. So basically, in life, we likely most of the time don't know the outcome in where we're going or whatever, like where we're investing our money, where we put our career, energy, all this stuff. And so that uncertainty can prevent us from taking chances. And so when we get to the point where we allow that statement, that sentiment to get to us for a long time, we can retract so much that we're nervous to even live our life because we're uncertain of the unknown. So that's not a healthy way to live life. Sometimes you just got to naturally get out there and kind of get beat up by the world and create some toughness to us. But really feeling an uncertainty of life itself, that is the danger and the pitfall that I want to bring to attention here. So it can enable us not to make decisions and take chances for the possibilities of being wrong as well. That's another thing people are uncertain about, is that they don't ever want to make mistakes and they don't ever want to be wrong. So again, they're uncertain about something, so they're going to avoid it. And yet in avoiding that, they're also missing out on opportunities as well too. So we must be okay with taking risks. I'm not saying we have to sell the whole house, but micro risks along the path can be very beneficial because it gives us feedback, right? So in terms of uncertainty as a general whole, no one's right all the time. This is take great pleasure in, or people can take great pleasure in being right, and of course it is enjoyable, but our personality can become consumed in someone that always has to be right, and then that inherently leads to uncertainty and not taking risks because you only want to be right all the time. Again, not a healthy way of living your life. We can risk being made fun of if we're socially wrong, but no one can be right all the time. So it's impossible, and no one really likes to know it all, let's be honest. So that's one piece. The second is sometimes people will try to save their self-esteem by playing indecisive. Like, if I don't take this risk, I won't be risking being wrong and I won't be risking life. But at the end of life, and or as you're going through thinking back on memories of life, there could be this regret of, you know what, I did live conservatively, right? But what didn't I take a chance on that I wish I really could have? That's what I'm talking about here. Too much of the majority of our life lived in uncertainty can lead to lack of fulfillment later on, because once the time is up, and it will be up, you always wish you would have taken more risks and not had regrets of not taking risks. So that's what we're trying to prevent, right? So what? You screw up one time, it doesn't matter. Okay, so the R in failure stands for resentment, and this might be the most powerful trap in this framework. One can argue all these are important. Personally, for me, I think this one is probably the number one here. So to be resentful and having resentment means being bitter from an unfair outcome of life. So resentment builds over time. It's not something that you just naturally get into. You've been hurt by someone, you've been hurt by something over enough time, one begins to feel resentment towards that person or towards that event. And I'm talking resentment is like deep hatred. Like, I am resenting something or someone so much because they caused me this pain that I want bad things to happen to them, essentially. So once we have enough of that in life, we can get resentful towards life. And this is where people really just fall off the rocker a little bit, in my opinion. So it can be damaging because resentment blocks ourselves from the ability to move forward in life. Holding on to anger blocks forgiveness and peace for one's well-being. So we have anger, we have these feelings from resentment because we wish we could go back in the past and change outcomes of how we wish things would have gone. That's like one of the more powerful human experiences, right? Is you want to go back and be like, man, I regret doing this, or I'm mad at how the outcome of that event played out. But the more we spend time thinking about that kind of stuff, the less time we spend in what is current, what is future, and where are we breathing life oxygen into as far as projects, career, relationships, all of that good stuff. So that's why I think it's most powerful, because we can spend so much time in our weekly lives over years being resentful of certain things, of certain people, when we can be in control of maybe changing future outcomes if we're in the right environment. Beautiful. So I have 5 here, which is the longest one, but they're all solid. So oftentimes people blame external items to use them as an scapegoat. Okay, very simple and straightforward statement, but it's true. We often use the things outside of us. We blame society, we blame the government, weather, other people. Essentially, in this mental framework, it's like, because I didn't receive the outcome I wanted, I'm going to blame whatever it is that is out there. That's not my fault, right? But it's because of this that didn't go the way. So the more we groom that, right, the more we groom that resentment and that kind of like mental pathway, the more work becomes our personality. And it feels good, right? It feels good to get that off our shoulders. Oh, you're not the reason for where you turned out in life. You're not the reason for those failures. But eventually what happens is karma or the world will catch up to that. So when we take total responsibility for our life, on the other end of the spectrum here is what I'm talking about. That's when resentment moves away, because once we become responsible for where we are and what happened, we then become responsible for our creation and all the good things in life too. So that was the first one, is blaming external and circumstances and using things as scapegoats when we know it's us inherently that got us to where we are right now. Resentment is also a way to make us feel important. Many people get a perverse satisfaction from feeling wronged, right? Victims of injustice. The one who has been treated unfairly is morally superior because they caused the injustice. So sometimes we'll go as far as like literally joining a group of people to like come out and protest and everything that, oh, we had this injustice happen to us. Now, I will say as a caveat, this is something that is very true and realistic. So if you have been a victim of some of these things, I totally get it. However, we can't live our entire life being a victim and having resentment for a certain event, because then again, we're wasting the future energy we have to create on an outcome that may or may not change in the future. So if you are truly a victim of injustice, stand up for what you believe in and get the outcome you desire. However, it's very easy to fall into the victimhood trap if you feel like, oh, I'm not really sure what my purpose is in life, or I'm not really sure where I'm going with life. It's very easy to jump in and start playing victim and start yelling out how you were, things didn't work out for you. And it's just such a damaging trap, because you're relinquishing power again, and we don't want to give that power away from ourselves. So that's another piece of resentment. So, to be factual though, life itself can beat us down and get us to weak places, and we can resent even living, right? This is the worst place of all, because we feel no matter what we do, we will lose and it won't be worth trying again. So this is kind of hopelessness again. This calls in a state of hopelessness, which is extremely dangerous. If we harbor resentment towards life, it's impossible to picture ourselves as self-reliant, independent, and self-determining. So the more we're in resentment, the more we're blaming things outside of ourselves, the more that we're relinquishing our self-reliance, determination, and our internal or independent power. Resentment, even when based on real injustices and wrongs, is not the way to win also. It soon becomes an emotional habit. We habitually feel that you are a victim that will lead to creating the self-image of victimhood. This is kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier. The more that we stay in that place, the more we identify with that type of person, and ultimately will bring you to a place that you feel like you have no control, which is not where we want to be, obviously. You do have control over your responses, and you are in control of your future. Resentment is inconsistent with goal striving. In our lives and in our goal setting, we're the driver, we're the creator. Resentment says, hey, we're mad about this outcome, we're not going to spend as much time doing this, and that's also going to lead to us feeling like a victim. And we need to work out of that immediately, because when you get successes, then you are fully responsible for your success. So if you're dealing with resentment in any one of these forms, I would encourage you to really try to come to peace with what has happened, even though it's not in your favor, and then use that as an ability to move forward in life with some confidence, to do new things, create a new story, create a new thing for your life. Okay, two more. So the E in failure stands for, this might be our last one. Forgive me for having a little bit of a, okay, cool. We're actually in a really good spot here. All right, thank you guys so much for bearing with me here a little bit. So let's dive into emptiness, which is what the E stands for in failure. So the last piece of the pie is emptiness. And this has to do with a lack of fulfillment or losing the ability to enjoy life. When we lose the ability to feel joy in our lives, no matter how small that joy may be, we slowly become depressed and unmotivated. Even people with a lot of external success can be empty inside, and they try to buy their way to fulfillment. That obviously never works. you get short-term pleasure from the new car, the new house, or whatever it is. But if you're just accumulating to overcome what internally is going wrong, that eventually will lead to a unfulfilled path. So not having that joy of life, not having that kind of intensity towards life and things you're working forward to, that can be a very scary trap, right? So how do we become aware of that, and how do we work out of that, right? So to be able to feel true joy, that's the accomplishment of the creative function, of creative goal striving. Emptiness is a symptom that you're not living with intention and creativity. You either don't have a goal that's important to you, you don't have a goal at all, or you're not using your talents and efforts to strive towards a goal that is important to you or in the right environment. It is the person who has no purpose in any way, shape, or form that becomes empty and pessimistic. Said another way, on the opposite end there, individuals who are actively engaged in enjoying in an exciting and important goal, they do not have pessimistic philosophies because they're in pursuit of something that's meaningful. So again, I'm not asking you to like revamp your whole life in this short video, right? But when we're becoming aware of these traps and pitfalls, that again helps us play defense, which allows us to spend less time there and more time pursuing the success formula. I have 3 more here. So emptiness, once it's experienced, can become a way of avoiding effort, work, and responsibility, right? So same thing with loneliness. It's like when we get away from effort, work, and responsibility, it feels good in the short term. However, the long-term consequences is it kind of leads to mental weakness and the inability to become the sufficient adult that we need to become. It becomes an excuse for non-creative living. If life is just a treadmill, why are we doing it, right? Emptiness also may be a symptom of inadequate self-image. Self-image is important, as we talked in this whole book, but essentially psychologically accepting something you feel does not belong to you or is inconsistent with yourself. When possessing an unworthy or undeserving self-image, we fail to feel appreciation for what we have accomplished. So this is again like we can go out and accomplish things like and feel like good about it, but sometimes when we're empty inside, we don't feel good about our accomplishments, and that can be really sad because we just invested a ton of time and effort into pursuing that, right? So we don't have to spend 4 weeks figuring out our life purpose. I can be the first to attest to this because I've spent maybe more time than a lot of people, and it's a tough path because you're not sure what the actual purpose is. However, in pursuit of that is still inherently better than just being empty and unfulfilled. Okay? So if you're feeling that way, maybe you need to dig in a little bit to figure out what's going to be exciting for me in the coming weeks. What's something that is really cool that I want to work on? What's a career change that I need to make to kind of get me going again? All these things lead to a more just engaging and enjoyable life, and that is to prevent emptiness, is where I'm going with all of this. So just to kind of conclude this piece, and then also to conclude the video here. So real success never hurt anyone. In fact, it's the goal for our society, in my opinion, and also Dr. Maltz. If we're all striving for our particular goal and achieve it, the accomplishment betters society as a whole. So everyone needs to be in pursuit of real success and what that means to them, because it is healthy to strive for goals that are important to us. And that's not a status symbol. It's because it's consistent with our inner desires. When we're in tune with what we want in life, that pushes away distraction because we really want something, but also it makes us feel good because we're in consistency with what we want to create in this life. And that's super, super powerful. So striving for real success for yourself and for success through creative accomplishment brings deep inner satisfaction. I'm going to hit that one more time. Striving for real success, which is something that we inherently want because it's exciting to us and we're passionate about it, for your success through creative accomplishment brings that inner satisfaction, which then again prevents feeling emptiness, right? Okay. Phony success to please others can bring phony satisfaction. Perfect. So we're going to wrap up with a really cool analogy here. So to conclude this episode, I wanted to use an analogy that they use in the book on how we can help ourselves manage our ability to work out of these failure traps, right? We just became aware of them. We need to do a little bit of a self-diagnosis, just as we did with success, and lay it out. So success basically sounds like this. Hey, here are my 8 pillars of my framework. These are the things I'm actively working on to progress forward. And then we reverse the coin. Here's our failure pitfalls. These are the things we're actively trying to defend against. And in that PB&J, in that combination, then you really have enough work to put out for yourself if you're constantly kind of analyzing where we're at and where we're looking to go. But you're just going to inherently have a better experience, because as the success traits build, you get better at defending against the bad. And overall, you just become, more equipped as a better human being. So vehicles come equipped with negative indicators on the dash, right? They're light signals in the front of the dashboard, and they tell us when we need gas, when we need to change the oil, when the engine's too hot, etc. So ignoring these signals can lead to us ruining our vehicle, right? You can't just run it hot until it blows up and then go buy a new one. So we don't get mad at the vehicle when the signals come up, right? They're an indicator to us that, we may need this or that. Similarly, we know that they will happen, so we often find times to do a tune-up or get maintenance completed on the car. The negative signal doesn't mean that the car itself is broken. It just needs to hit the pit stop, right? And so easily working into this, saying the driver of the vehicle doesn't stare at the dashboard while they're driving, right? So not only do we have these indications of what's going wrong and we need to get our pit stops in to make sure we're running efficiently, but when we drive our car, we don't stare at the dashboard, right? What we do is we go out into life and we're driving towards something that we want to do, or we're just driving aimlessly, whatever one we're in right now. Basically, the whole point of this is that as we are driving in life, we look at our signals that are coming up on our personal dashboard, and we're taking the time to address these signals. So just to tie everything together, the inherent car itself is driving towards where we want to go, but all of these failure traps and pitfalls are the lights on the dashboard. We don't stare at the lights at the dashboard while we're driving, because then we'll get into an accident. We're in pursuit of something, and then as these signals come up, feelings of emptiness, feelings of loneliness, feelings of being frustrated, as that comes up, we just need to find a time to take our pit stop to then take care and alleviate what we're feeling. I love that analogy so much, because I think it's truly makes sense as far as how you experience life. We want to be go, go, go. We want to be intentional, goal, or creatively living. But as these signals come up to our attention, we can't just run the car until it blows up, right? We only have one body, one mind, one soul. We need to take the appropriate measures to reset ourselves, to maintain what we have, to continue to drive more smoothly and consistently more of the time. So thank you so much, guys, for entertaining both the success framework and the failure framework. We now have a lot of information for you to process and digest. However, from here, we're going to move into chapter 10. And thank you guys for continuing to read along with me. Cheers.